Right, ladies and gents, in the last video we pulled out the ignition unit, still attached to the top yoke as you can see. So we've got a wiring issue and we need to take the barrels out. Just there. And for that we need to get this block off. It's held on to the yoke with these two bolts here, which you can't see very well, but are sheared deliberately because they're torqued up and then they're over torqued and they're designed to shear. They won't drift out, and that's probably because you've got iron oxide in there on the bolt, aluminium oxide, probably Loctite, some sort of thread locker, and trying to drift them from this end, you're actually still quite a way away from the work and you just lose the impact over that length. So I'm going to drill them out. Let's get some light on it so you can see. That's the bolt head, and all that's left of it is the sheared off point, because it's designed like that. You torque it up, or it's torqued up at factory, and then the head snaps off, just leaving that cone. So it won't drift out, needs drilling out. So I'm going to put a punch mark in the centre. I think I'm going to try it on the post drill first, and all I really need to do is just remove all traces of that head until we get to the bolt. Try not to damage the actual block itself, because I'll have to seat a new bolt in there, and I'll use a cap head so I can get in there with an Allen key, and at least that way we can get this apart. All that should do then is just leave a stud coming out of the yoke to about here, and that should be enough to grab hold of, which I can either weld a nut onto or just use some mole grips on, but it's going to be held in there pretty tight because it was obviously sheared off deliberately, so that means it would have been torqued up quite high, and it's probably held in there with aluminium oxide, iron oxide, thread locker, and it's not necessarily going to be easy. I can throw some heat at it, but we'll need to get the barrels out first because I need to try and repair those, and these wires of course, so I need to get all of that out of the way. I think the barrel's held onto the block probably by a couple of countersunk screws or cap head screws that are sunken under here. These just look like a couple of little caps. They certainly feel plastic anyway. So this needs to come out so that I can just separate the block and the barrel from the yoke, so I can get some heat on this to remove the remainder of those broken bolts once I've drilled them. Otherwise I'll just end up destroying this with heat, which is no good. I might as well just replace it then. And I'm trying to repair this. More to the point, I'm trying to repair this broken wire here, because that will be soldered into this barrel. So I've got to separate these to try and get to it all. But I'm going to try it on the post drill first because that will give me more control. I'd rather use the power drill because it's much more high speed, but it won't be as controlled or as accurate, and I don't want to do too much damage to this actual block, because I've got to seat new bolts in there, assuming I can save it all. Worst case, if I damage this, if I'm not able to extract the bolts from the yoke, which I'm pretty confident I can, yeah, I end up having to replace the yoke, the ignition barrel and this unit here, which, you know, is a pain. I'm trying to do this as a repair without it costing anything. Why wouldn't you? So let's get these off. I'll stick it in the vise for that purpose. That's the bolt there, shouldn't be tight, easy to get to. I'm not expecting these to be tight, to be honest, otherwise I'd have held the riser itself in the vise. I might need to do that anyway. This one was already loose. Well, you can see it clearly now. You've got the conical remains of what was the bolt head and the shear point at the top where the actual, I guess, either hex head or hex socket snapped off when it was torqued up. So I need to centre punch the middle of that, drill down, eradicate the remains of that bolt head and try not to damage the seat too much. Hopefully give me a better chance at hitting the middle. Just going to shim this with a rule. It's ever so slightly rocking. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Now I'm using an 8mm carbide bit, a stubby bit, which will give me a little bit more control over the drill. But it is carbide, not like this old collection of HSS. I've got some good quality carbide bits. 8mm is narrower than the actual head itself, which looks to be, I don't know, probably looking at, yeah, about 16mm, something like that. Doesn't matter because this only needs to drill down and really eradicate the shaft, because as soon as it's reached the bottom of the bolt head, then that remaining part of the bolt head comes away from the shaft of the bolt, so you don't have to technically drill all the bolt head material away. So anyway, let's chuck this up and get this lined up. I might have to hold it by hand because I'm struggling with clamps, etc. Okay, I need to be really super careful with this, and I need to take it easy. Okay, I've moved the workpiece out of the way and removed the drill bit because that drill's wandering, so just going to pop a smaller bit in, and we can get it started, I think, probably more easily by perhaps giving it a bit more of a pilot to start with. See what that does. started to wander, but then it pulled itself back in, so that was definitely a good plan. We're actually boring a hole in the centre of it now, so I'll I think what I'll do is I'll continue to do that, and then I'll use the bigger drill bit, the 8mm. Not even sure what this is. It's probably 4 or 6, 4mm. Reasonably on centre there, slightly off to one side, but that's okay. Once we're down below the bolt head level, we can switch out to a slightly bigger drill bit and hopefully take that head off. Well, if we just clean out all the swarf from there, it's quite a lot. Yeah, I would say we're below the bolt head level there, so I shall definitely I shall switch up to a bigger drill size, I think. Right, let's get it back on the bench. Just going to change this out to, I was debating whether to do 6mm, but I think if I do that there's a danger that I won't quite cut down through the full width of the bolt, because I suspect that is a 6mm bolt. So let's step up to the 8mm. Just shimming that with a rule. Stops it rocking. It should self-center. The issue I've got though with this is that when I was trying to drift it out, I had to cut a little divot into the side of the cone, so it looks like it's gone off centre, but it's not. It's perfectly centred. But of course that does make it difficult to keep centred when I go and put the 8mm drill down on it. So, but we won't have that problem with the other side anyway. I'm just going to dig down through this. Hopefully then we will cut off the top of that bolt head, what's left of it, and we should be done on this side. Something's not right there. I wonder if I've blunted that drill off. I may very well have done that at some point. I think what I'm going to do is go back to my plan of swapping out to the 6. Yeah, that's not looking good on the edges, so I think I've probably killed that one. Let's go up to the, or down to the 6, I should say. Hopefully that's enough. I do have a 10. I've only got a limited number of these carbide drills. I can always swap out to a, oh, goodbye. I can always swap out to a regular HSS. I just prefer using these carbide bits. I've got cobalt drills with up to 8% cobalt in them, which are good. So yeah, if we need a bigger size drill, we'll do that. I reckon I got it, you know. Okay, let's clean this out and see what we're left with. There's nothing much left in there. Right, I think I might have drilled considerably further down into the bolt than I wanted to. Let's see if I can get something a little sharper or a little sturdier. Yeah, do you know, I don't think I've released that head from the bolt, so yeah, maybe the stud that will be left is a little wider than 6mm, so I've not released the head from it. Right, I'm going to switch up to an 8mm HSS with 8% cobalt, and that should do the trick. I'm going to need to lower the table. Hopefully I've got enough height there. Only just. It felt like it might have broken through. That looks alright to me, and this was pretty cleanly removed, to be fair. Well, I'm going to crack on with the other side, and then we're going to see if we can lift this block and barrel off the yoke. Well, that's a lot neater than the first one, so I'll go straight to the 8mm HSS cobalt drill. We should get that thing straight out, I think. I'm struggling a little bit just because I didn't step it with the 6mm, so I might just stick the 6mm down there, the carbide drill, and I've got less to take out with the 8. Well, it's quite a big old sort of plunge, isn't it, really? So let's do that first. clear the chips out and see where we're at, shall we? And then might just be able to pull this out. Yeah, the fact the magnet's not lifted it up yet says we're not through, so we can't be more than a hair's whisker away, so we'll just give it a few more plunges. Put it this way, the hole's deep enough, so for some reason we just haven't quite separated that head from the bolt. Must be just a tiny little bit of material holding it together. Maybe it is an 8mm bolt, so we just got really lucky on the first one, possibly. Very possibly. You know what we can do? Step the drill up. Well, we seem to have separated it. Well, good news, when the spindle came up it pulled the block and the barrel with it, so yeah, just stepping that up to an 8.5. We must have been pretty much dead nut centre, but if that's an 8mm bolt, then clearly an 8mm drill's not going to separate the head cleanly. Right, I can't lower the bench or the workpiece, and the drill's in the way, so I'm going to have to swing the bench out of the way, I think. Should do it. Well, I think you can see clearly there how we've drilled right down through the centre of that bolt. Pretty cleanly, to be fair. Well, there's no damage to the yoke, and we should have enough bolt left to extract. Although you can see the one on the right, which I presume is both, has blue thread locker on it, so we are going to have to use a little heat. But we'll get to that. Right, well, we just need to try and separate the barrel from the block so we can get to the wiring, see if we can fix that. If we can't, we can't. Worst case scenario, all of this is replaceable, but naturally we want to try and repair it first. I've just taken a measurement of these bolts. They are 8mm diameter with a 1¼ thread pitch, which is exactly the same as the pinch bolts here. So I'm sure I've got quite a lot of bolts of the same diameter and pitch in my vast collection. Shouldn't have any trouble once I've got these out in finding something suitable anyway. Right, I've got it mounted up in the vise. This is the rider side. That is actually the steering lock there. It's never worked. It doesn't really ever want to come on. The occasion that you do manage to get it to wiggle on, you struggle to get it off again, which is not good if you're out. So I don't use it. So yeah, that might be good enough reason to replace all this anyway, but let me get these two. I think that's probably just some caps on there that just are covering the bolts that are holding the barrel to the block. Must be, nothing else going to be holding it, so let me see if I can prise them off. They feel like plastic anyway, might be aluminium. I get quite a lot of criticism from my misuse of screwdrivers. Oh, that is a little plastic cap. That is another shear bolt. I really thought that was just going to be a screw, as it was hidden away. You can't get to it unless you drill the other shear bolts out, because this is on the underside of the yoke. So it looks like I'm going to have to drill these out as well, which is really annoying. I had no clue. Because the yoke sits on top of here, there's absolutely no reason to put shear bolts in there, because you've got to get this out by drilling out the shear bolts that were in there to get to them. This is just turning into a drilling out shear bolts video rather than repairing an ignition barrel video, which might be all it ends up as. Change out to a bigger one. Just needed to make a bit of a divot in it. I think we are rapidly losing the war. When I say rapidly. Something's moving. I'm wondering if I sheared the head off that. Yeah, I get into a lot of trouble with the JIS screwdriver brigade and using screwdrivers as drifts and things like that, but you know, it's my stuff. If I break it, it's like, you know, pennies to replace. Tools are tools. Tools are expendable in my view. I think we might have got it, you know. So yeah, you can always sharpen, reheat treat a screwdriver, or just bin it, or replace it with one of the many thousands you've got lying around the workshop. But in my opinion, they're just consumables like any other tool. They don't have to last you a lifetime if you're just using a cheap set of... Perfect. Yeah, I've got it in reverse, so let's see what that does. It's not a reverse drill bit, but we'll see. No, maybe not. I think We were just lucky that time, maybe. Yeah. Ah, now that seemed to move. We're definitely winning. Ooh, looks a big old mess until you can clean everything up. There's a little washer in there. Yeah. Right, let's see if there's anything else stopping this from coming apart. Huh. That's what I was expecting to see the first time. Yeah, that I did not realise. I just assumed that that whole thing came out, and I assumed that that whole thing would be held on with two bolts like this, and so clearly you had a couple of shear bolts just holding this shroud on, and now we've got some proper screws, something's fallen out in there, that we can hopefully undo. I'm sure the best way to hold this, but let me if I can just clamp it up. Can't imagine it's going to come out very easily. But just because I couldn't imagine it, didn't mean it wasn't going to happen. Right. Well, we knew what the problem was. We could see the broken wire. Now we can see it up close. Got a connection come adrift there. All we need to do is strip this back, see if we can pull it across enough to re-solder it onto there. If not, I might need to strip it back and put a new piece of wire in, and then we can just clean it all up and put it back together. Well, I've had a good look over all the mechanism. I think I'm going to replace it. The soldering joint, of course, is a nice, easy fix, but the whole unit is in a very poor state. It's very, very stiff. The terminals are all corroded, the springs are worn out, the steering lock doesn't work, and frankly it's just not worth repairing. So I'm going to get a new one and we'll put it all back together as new. Next video, of course, I will need to take a look at that yoke, because we've got a couple of stuck bolts, or the remainder of the bolts that I drilled out. They have been Loctited in, so that's going to take a little bit of heat. Till then, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Leave a comment and I will see you next time.